402,
Get 'em.
Dan.
402.
So I will hand over the meeting to Adam.
Yes, I'm Adam Lamontagne, the Assistant Town Administrator. With us today at the screening committee meeting, we have Diane Haley, excuse me, from the Select Board, Robert May from the Advisory Committee, Dennis Rich from the Planning Committee, and the CPC. And then we have Chris Langan, a neighbor who also served on the Baldwin Elementary School Disposition Committee, and Amanda Murray, who's the chairperson of the Economic Development Industrial Committee, excuse me, EDIC. So with us, we have a full house. Our first presenter will be Eden Ree, right? Do I have that right? Real estate. Of Massachusetts LLC, and I will now put the floor for them, and please take it away, Doug.
Okay. So I'm assuming that you forwarded my PowerPoint presentation to everyone.
I did.
I'm basically gonna just rehash the our PowerPoint presentation. It's pretty simple. We put basically bullet points and then open it up to questions at the end. So let's say there's 5 things we want to address. 1 is our vision, 2, basics of the offer, 3, our team, 4, the benefits to Templeton, and 5, like I said, we're going to answer any questions that you have. Number 1, our vision. Eden RE of Massachusetts LLC wishes to purchase a Baldwinville school in order to establish a state-of-the-art adult use marijuana cultivation and manufacturing facility. Eden would like to obtain a delivery license and work with the town to identify a second location, which would be for retail. We estimate that the total project will bring in 75 to 100 jobs to Templeton. Our offer includes an ongoing 3% of the gross revenue, which we estimate will be 1.5 million over 5 years to the town. We are proposing the town partner with the Wachusett Business Incubator for job training, but at the town's discretion. 2, the basics of our offer. We are offering to purchase a building for $500,000, and we do not require any financing or tax credits. 3% of the gross revenue, not just over a 5-year period, but on an ongoing basis, will be going to the town. We will require a host community agreement and a special use permit for this location, as well as a second location for retail, which is mutually agreeable with Eden and Templeton. And also commitment to maintaining the exterior character of the building as much as possible. For our team, Eden team brings together a high quality construction experience with a proven track record of safe and secure cannabis cultivation. Mike Bisco from Bisco Contracting Corporation has 50+ years of experience in the contracting industry, extensive experience with redevelopment projects, and is a registered professional engineer in Massachusetts. Myself, I'm a member of Eden of Rhode Island, which is a medical marijuana cultivation facility. And I'm also an insurance industry professional. We produce high quality medical cannabis in the state of Rhode Island through Eden. Jason Bates is a grower manager. He's also from Eden. He will be the grow manager for the Templeton project, and he's an experienced and award-winning cultivator. 5, the benefits of Templeton. We're estimating about 75 to 100 jobs will be created in Templeton. The ongoing revenue to the town from the project, an estimated 1.5 million over 5 years, but to continue past the 5 years. If the town chooses to partner with the Wachusett Business Incubator, overall support of economic development through job training and small business support, commitment to safety and security at the location, preservation to the greatest extent possible of the historic exterior, and Eden's committed to being an excellent partner to the community. The next slide, we showed where the projected financial summary will come in. 2020, there would be no revenue. 2021, there would be a minimal amount of revenue. And then from 2022 to 2024, we'll bring in approximately 50 million between that time frame as an estimate. And what questions do you have?
Question?
Kind of get started. I'm Chris Langan, the neighbor kind of in the area. And one question I had when 1620 Labs was here a year ago to do a similar job, when they presented, they had a very detailed explanation of like this carbon multi-step filtration to avoid any smell outside of the facility. And I know the neighbors are myself included, are very concerned about that. And there's been other situations in the local communities where that has been a problem. So I want to make sure that doesn't occur. And I noticed the only place I see in your proposal where that is noted is page 14 under paragraph E, where it says preventing issues with odor, and I see nothing else. So I kind of want to see that addressed in detail as to how that would be prevented. And if it wasn't, what recourse could we have as a neighborhood?
It's definitely something that we can put together for you and provide you with what we can do in more detail. We do, in our current location, Rhode Island, we are very close to some residential neighbors, and we've never had any complaints of any odor to the town, and we've been in operation for between 2 and 3 years now. So like I said, we take like the other company mentioned, we do high quality carbon scrubbers, constantly replacing the air filters, and the way everything's exhausted. Like I said, we want to maintain no exterior smell as much as we can from the outs that you can detect from the outside of the building. We've never had any current complaints from in our current facility with the city.
Thank you. I guess I'll go to question 2.
You took my question.
Of your proposal, I'm just concerned with the parking situation as well. So you mentioned 75 to 100 employees. I'm assuming they won't all be there at one time. But do you plan on repaving or having parking in back? Would it be street parking? Like, what would that look like on a typical day? Because I know you allocated money on page 16 to parking and paving. What more does that sort of look like? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, Mike, and you can correct me if you have a different thought process on that, but you know the big area that's in the back of the building where the playground is, where there's that, which I believe, or the impression that's included as part of this, what we would do as part of this purchase. We are going to, Mike, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, we were planning on repaving and cleaning up everything that's there and using that for a parking, that area, that entire area out back. So we don't plan on parking anywhere on the side or on the street, or using, obviously there's a driveway if you're facing the building to the left. Don't plan on using anywhere on the left or really anywhere on the right. Really, our primary parking would be in the back of where the, behind where the school is, where that big playground is. Utilizing that big space.
Doug?
Yes.
How many people would be in the building at one time?
I would estimate about 20 to 30 tops.
Would there be enough parking out back to fit everybody?
Doug, you allocate about 200 square feet to 300 square feet per lot. That includes entrances, exits, travel lanes, normal spot, 9 by 18. So 10 by 20 is maximum. You never see that anywhere, but we average 200 square feet per lot. So there is an adequate area back there to take 50, 60 cars.
Okay.
Doug?
Yes.
What would your hours of operation be?
It would be from our primary operating hours would be 9 to 5 would be our primary operating hours. There may be certain circumstances where you may have to have a few people there stop in at night, but it would not be the primary working hours of the facility.
Okay, thank you.
Doug, would there be security overnight, like overnight security, or would that be cameras, or how would security work out?
Yeah, we'd have a state-of-the-art video camera facility as well as alarm systems that are in place. Massachusetts has very stringent requirements as well as most states for, like I said, video surveillance, and we don't plan on having physical security in terms of any type of armed guards or anything. Mostly it would be like I said, utilizing surveillance and electronic monitoring systems.
Just to elaborate on that, Doug, there'll be a professional security company that would establish the security protocol and equipment required, and the state pretty much mandates exactly what they would require in Massachusetts.
Doug,
Yes.
question on the building and the lot around it. Looking at your plan, I don't see any storage in the layout. And I'm assuming the media, both incoming and outgoing through remediation, needs to be stored somewhere. So could you tell me what your plans are for that? And are there plans for out structures in the property adjacent to the building now?
When you reference storage, what type of storage are you?
Let's say if you're using, I don't know how you plan on growing in the facility, but if you're using, let's say, a rock wool, or you're using a, Pro Mix, or you're using some sort of media to grow with, I'm assuming that changes. You don't use the same media all the time, so you have to store that somewhere, your replacement.
We typically, I mean, right now, we're not maintaining high levels of high quantities of product on site for use. We have enough for one or two grows, but we're not going to be, we maintain constant supplies with our vendors that maintain it at their facilities. And then as we need the supplies, they will well, in this situation, they're going to deliver it utilizing their vehicles.
Okay, that falls right into my second question was,
Yes.
What do you see for incoming traffic to the facility in the neighborhood as far as deliveries? For equipment, supplies, ongoing.
Well, that would be, deliveries would always be during business hours from pretty much 9 to 5. And it would be from, like I said, different vendors that we receive materials from, like you said, rock wool and nutrients and any other type of materials that we need. That will be the primary deliveries that we receive.
Do you envision that being mostly UPS, FedEx type stuff, or do you envision it being 18-wheelers or 10-wheelers?
No, it won't be 18. Right now, they use pretty much box trucks. So it would be, I would envision box trucks.
All right, thank you very much.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. In your information, you indicated there would be a 3% annual return to the town. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And following up on that, it said someplace later on in the information that any increase in property taxes or valuations would reduce that amount. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So any annual property valuations increases would do away with that relatively soon.
It would be offset by that, any increases. That's correct.
Okay. In relation to Robert May's recent question about disposing of soil and things of that nature, is this a soil operation, or are you using hydroponic growing system?
It would be, we use rock wool. So, I mean, it would be a combination of rock wool and cocoa is what we use.
Is that
It's not a hydroponic situation.
Okay. Is that a liquid, or is that
Rock wool is, it's cocoa is like it kind of sort of looks like a soil, but it's less.
It's a growing medium then.
It's a growing medium. It's less dense than soil. It's more economically and ecologically friendly than soil.
Okay. How long do you think it would take you to get this set up? And this is taking into consideration our current situation with the virus. Do you have any timelines for completing it?
Yeah, we do have timelines. So I've been advised that that in the in a lot of things that we can't control, because we don't know what's going to happen as a result of the coronavirus and how that will impact everything. But let's just pretend that assuming we could get, everything worked out and we have the host agreements and everything is ready by September of this year, and that we can apply to the CCC by September, and that's what our goal would be, is to apply by September, assuming that the town can move forward and approve us and things can move along as everyone would hope. I mean, considering everything we're all dealing with right now, we're hoping that within 12 months we can have preliminary approval from the CCC so that we can do what we need to do within 12 months. And then we expect to build out, and Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we expect the build out to be, I'd say around approximately 4 to 5 months. Is that correct, Mike?
I think you're in the range, yes.
All right, so we expect it from 4 to 5 months. So it would be, and we can't control, I mean, we would apply, if we had the flexibility, we'd actually apply May 1st or June 1st to the CCC, or I shouldn't say May 1st, but probably by June 1st we could, but we have to just wait to have things go through the process as far as Templeton's concerned. But as soon as we have the host agreements and are ready to go with Templeton, we're going to put an application in with the CCC. We'll be ready to go as soon as we receive that approval. And like I said, we hope the CCC takes about 12 months, and then we will be ready within 4 to 5 months after that, be operational. First revenue comes in, it takes the growing process of the plants is about roughly 4 months, about 4 to 4.5 months from the point where we put the seed or the clone into the ground until the point where we actually sell the product. It's about 4 to 4.5 months. So 12 months, and then like I said, then about 4 to 5 months, and then about 4 to 4.5 months.
So we're looking at probably a year then, or 2 years, I should say.
About 2 years, a little under 2 years, but that's about 2 years. That's why I put in my proposal on the timeline. That's why I had indicated that I'm hopeful that at the very end of 2021 that we can have some type of revenue by like the very last month, by December of 2021, assuming everything goes fine with as a result of the coronavirus and things stay on track. That's what the hope is.
Okay. All right.
Dennis, if I could just chime in for a second. That's Dennis Rich. He's on the planning board as well as the CPC. But from this point forward, if anybody's calling in on the phone, just if you could just mention your name, because if you're on the visually on Zoom, they can see your name already. So if you're calling on the phone, please say your name before you ask your question or whatever it may be. Thank you.
Is there anything that I can do to bring up my picture or whatever you need?
There should be a video button on your screen. Start video.
Start video. Is that the one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
Oh, okay. So you're actually connected. Okay, because we thought you were calling in. Okay.
All right.
So now you're actually visually connected, Dennis, so you're all set. Do we have any other question for Doug and his team from the screening committee? Okay, Doug. Well, thanks for coming in. Appreciate you taking the time. Do you have any closing remarks you and your team want to make?
No, I mean, Megan, anything you want to mention? Or Mike?
I'm fine, I think.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for this process. And if there's any other follow-up questions, we're happy to answer them. And we can definitely send more information around the process for mitigating any odors.
I'll work on getting you that in writing as well.
Doug, I did have one additional question if you're still available.
Yes.
All it was which tier are you applying for this facility? Do you know which tier you'd be applying for?
I think, Doug, on that, I think we discussed the maximum tier.
Okay, as much as the square footage will.
Yes,
Allow.
as much as the square
Allow.
footage will allow. Yes.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Now, screening committee, you've all received your ranking sheets, if you will, your scoring sheets. So if you could take the time to go through that. I want to see, do we have, Sean, do we have Matthew on the line with MPZ development yet, or no? Well, in the meantime, we'll kind of go over the process. So we have two proposers coming in. I'm going to handle everything on my computer and enter the information at the conclusion of this when you make your recommendation to the town administrator, Carter Terenzini. But with that, if you want to fill out your ranking sheets as the proposers are in presenting, or you want to wait till the end, however you want to do it. But it's critical that you keep the number for each one and a record for me to have. At some point, you could get that over to town hall so I could put it into the procurement file for the BES or the Baldwin Elementary School sale, or not
Okay.
sale, but procurement process. Sean, do we have Matthew on the line?
We do not.
Okay. So in the meantime, screening committee could just until Sean, if you could just let us know when Matthew comes in, that way they could take the time to use their sheets with the comparative criteria and the ranking that they're using for the proposal that just came in. And just so the committee knows, MPC Development just sent me their PowerPoint. I did send that all out to you just now. So if you want to go in your computer, you have that, as well as you received the Eden Re. You received their proposal earlier today. So their PowerPoint proposal, excuse me. Where you want to add?
Just at the end, when everybody's had their say, Adam and I have a few notes to go over with you once MPC is done with their presentation.
At the end, are we going to discuss each thing as the merit committee, or are we just going to pass in our sheets and that will be that?
I was thinking that I would call on each member of the screening committee and ask you for your total RFP score for each of the proposals, and I would just say, like, Diane Haley, what's your score for Eden, and what's your score for MPZ? And then I'll go to Robert May, Eden, what's your score, and then MPZ, and then all the way down, and then I'll give you the.
Okay.
You want them to discuss?
Yeah, and you could discuss it prior to, not going to do it right away. That's the concern.
I believe that Matthew has joined the meeting.
Thanks, Diane. Matt, are you on the line?
Yep, I'm just getting set up here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you for coming earlier.
Sure, no problem. And let me get my team together because they planned for 4:45. So let me see if I can get them on the line sooner. Just bear
The
with me.
screening committee moves fast. They throw their questions out.
That's good. It's good to be prepared.
But yeah, we'll give you a few minutes to get your folks in order and
Give me,
let me know when you're ready.
thank you, Adam. Appreciate it. Hello, everybody. Apologize for the delay here.
And just for everybody to know that's viewing this on TCTV and it's being live streamed, that these proposals are available on our webpage. If you go to www.templetonma.gov and you scroll to the bottom of our page and go to current the projects tab, and you can click on it, and then you click on the Balderville Elementary School project. The committee received the proposals, I would say, about a week or so ago, and they had time to research and go through these proposals. So they spent a lot of time doing that, and that way, that's what I could attribute to the first proposal that came in, why the questions were already ready, and why it went so fast for the first person. But it's just so happened that's the way this process works, and quite frankly, when Matt gets up and running, we'll have him do his presentation. Thank you.
All right, let's see what we've got here. I see my team populating the screen, so that's great. So we thank you guys for your time. We're excited about this opportunity. It's a great community you have in Templeton. We had the opportunity to visit the site and tour the building not too long ago. It's a beautiful building, and it certainly should be preserved. So we have a presentation. Let me see if I can share my screen with you so I can walk you through the presentation. Although it might make more sense for Janice to share her screen if she's more able to do that. Janice, are you on?
There, I just unmuted. Yes, I'm on, but I don't have the PowerPoint queued up.
Okay, let me see what
multiple different screens.
Everybody's working in this new normal now, which is a challenge. Does the committee all have the presentation I sent? Could I walk through it kind of like the last presenter did? Would that work for you?
That works, yeah.
Okay, let's just see. Let me give this one shot, and if it doesn't work. Okay, how's that? Can you see my screen? Great.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so let me make this large and then we'll get into it. Also having some video issues on my end here, so apologize for that. So here we are. This is the team. You've all had a chance to review our proposal. Thank you for taking the time to do that. I know it was a large document with a lot of information in it, as it should be. You know, this is an important process that you've engaged in, and getting the right fit for the community is important. So the team you see before you here is the development team. I'm Matt Zoller. I'm principal of MPZ Development. We have IKON Architects as the architecture firm. Absalon Associates is our historic consultant. They deal with historic buildings of this nature and all types of historic buildings across the Commonwealth. Then we have our management company, Trinity Management, out of Boston, and they're currently finishing a project in Worcester, so not far from Templeton. So they'd be the manager, the third-party manager, once the project is complete and up and running. Keith Construction is a contractor, and worked with them numerous times on various projects. I think Tim Ford is on the line. He's the principal of Keith. And then Nixon Peabody is our attorney. Paul Bouton is on the line.
Hello.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
And they're our transactional attorney. They're also our permitting attorney. And Paul and I have worked closely together for many years. So kind of talking about key personnel, we really want to talk to you today about the design intent and the proposal we have, the vision, so to speak, for the Baldwinville Elementary School and the associated site. So here's a little background about myself, Janice, and Doug. So I started my company about 2 years ago. I'm an affordable housing developer, mixed income housing developer by trade. I've done over 1,000 units of affordable housing in my time in the development industry. I've been in the industry for about 2 decades. Before that, I was in architecture and marketing. Really know the business well and love the business. It's an important part of every community is to have a high quality housing stock. We look to kind of, come to communities and start a dialogue and really figure out, what people want to see in their community and, the vision that they have for that community. And we want to be a part of that. So it's, really a process, and we all enjoy that process. And so IKON is also very knowledgeable in that process. And I can let Janice speak to her experience, but you could see here, she has quite a bit of experience renovating old school buildings and being, IKON is well known across the Commonwealth, for the work they've done in historic, but also in housing generally. And then Doug is a principal of Absalon Associates, and he is steeped in historic preservation, has done hundreds of projects across the Commonwealth. So all of these professionals are at your disposal to create what will be ultimately, the best possible outcome for the Baldwinville Elementary School and the associated site. So what we're going to do now is just walk through a couple of projects. So I'm currently in the process of completing a project in Bridgewater, Mass, and it's very similar to this one. So I'm showing it here, a rendering of the proposed redevelopment project. We're again taking a historic school, converting it into housing, and then building a new building behind it. You can see that in the foreground. It's a $26 million investment to the town of Bridgewater. And it's been really well received. We started the process with Bridgewater about 3 years ago. Now the project is fully entitled. That means it has all its permits and is ready to go under construction. We're just gathering the associated financing for that project. Bridgewater, like Templeton, has a CPA. So there was a CPA contribution as it related to saving this building and creating housing on site here at the town level. And then this building is on the National Register, as is the Baldwinville, and we started accruing state and federal historic tax credits for this project. So we're in the process of raising those funds. The last piece is the state funding to build the housing through the tax credit program and other affordable housing resources. So we're in the process of gathering those resources now, and hope to close this at the end of this year. The current state of things, as you all know, is a challenge. So we're working through the coronavirus issues, but we're very optimistic that this project will get under construction shortly. I'm going to have Janice now speak to IKON's experience as it relates to school buildings. So go ahead, Janice, why don't you do that?
Thanks, Matt. I did want to just back up a little bit and just tell you a little bit about IKON. We're a woman-owned business in Boston. Our work is focused in 3 practice areas: live, learn, and renew. And I head up our renew practice. Sustainability is intrinsic to all of our work at all different levels, whether it's as simple as specifying durable materials, or as complex as getting certified under a passive house model. We call it sensible green, but at the core of it is really preserving existing buildings. As they say, the greenest building is the one already standing. But to elaborate that on a little bit more, that focus on preservation goes well beyond the obvious of preservation of the historic building, but into preserving the community and the social fabric of the neighborhoods that these schools reside in, as well as preserving affordable housing options, particularly true in this affordable housing crisis that we're living. IKON's experience with these historic schools is rather deep. What's shown on the screen here is a most recent completion of the Cody School residences in Bourne, where it was not only the historic restoration of an existing school, but a wing of new construction to provide 63 units of affordable senior housing. So like all of these properties with historically registered assets, we're working with the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines on rehabilitation to get all those details exactly as they should be, from the brick restoration, limestone, all the detailing around that, all new windows, to the interior where that beautiful millwork is often preserved. We like to say that these are usually found in luxury housing, and through these affordable tax credits and historic tax credits, we're able to bring it to affordable housing as well. So Cody is the most recent, but we've done Simpkins School in Yarmouth, Fulton School in Weymouth. I like to talk about the person who's living in their favorite teacher's 3rd grade classroom in the Fulton School. It was awesome to hear those kind of connections to the past, yet bringing that forward into the future. We also completed the School Street in Athol, but I've got a whole list of other schools that are on the boards in various stages of permitting with different zoning or other entitlement processes, from Fairhaven to Fitchburg, Taunton, Athol, Sandwich, Salem. You know, we've got a depth of experience in bringing communities to these existing structures.
Thanks, Janice. Is Doug on? Was he able to make his way onto the phone? I know he was having a little bit of connectivity issues. Okay. He may join us in a little bit, but I'll just speak to Absalon's experience a little bit here. As you can see, they have many different types of historic structures that they've worked on and with, and accruing the state and the federal historic tax credit. The federal credit is worth 20% of the qualified rehabilitation expenses, and the state credit is also worth the same, but it's allocated over 3 consecutive rounds a year. So you accrue that credit over time. And so one thing I just wanted to mention is, and as Janice mentioned, in kind of doing these historic restorations, a lot of care and attention is taken to various details, let it be the windows, the exterior facade, looking back at what's historically available. And there's a cost associated with that, but ultimately that makes for a better building long-term. So these are really great investments that are made. And, we'll restore the Baldwinville School to the former grandeur of its original building, when it was first built. So it's really a great process, and it makes for a better project in the end. And as you can see from our budget, these things aren't cheap. So it's important, though, that we maintain the fabric of the neighborhood and the historic integrity of the building. So Absalon will help us kind of get those credits and work through that process. And so this is just some of their past experience, and more is available, on their website and in the proposal we sent you. So I wanted to kind of speak to now the community benefits, the municipal benefits that were in the proposal, but I wanted to elevate them very high level and kind of point them out again. And I know you all have absorbed, what we submitted, but I just wanted to run through it one more time. So, we are entering into what is a public-private partnership with the town. We want to implement the goals and the vision of the 2017 master plan as it relates to housing, historic preservation, and community open space. We want to do that through a friendly 40B process. We're also open to working with the planning board if that's a better route. We're open to having that conversation, but it's a joint process that we'd work through together, gathering community input along the way. We've asked the town to be a lender as it relates to their commitment through the CPA. That has short and long-term financial benefits. The short term are the permitting fees that you'll see as a result of the construction here. And then the longer term, and I should say the acquisition fee that we're proposing, the $500,000 to buy the building and the associated site. And then the longer term is the annual reoccurring tax revenue. And I've highlighted that in our proposal as well. So you could see, an estimate there. It could be more, it could be less, but that's based on excise taxes, additional fees, and per unit revenue as it relates to creating 50 additional units within the town. And then there's an opportunity here to open up the ability for the town to secure other grants from the state, MassWorks funds, other various funding resources that come with creating housing. Housing is a high priority right now for the administration, the current administration, and it's much needed. We're in a housing crisis in the Commonwealth. So, doing more housing is helpful to everybody. So that's a benefit. Then we kind of spoke to the elements that relate to the historic preservation of the building and the CPC and CPA goals there within Templeton. So you're preserving the historic building as we described, you're preserving open space, you're creating some open space. And, we think that it makes sense to open that up to the community. So depending on, what we end up creating, through a community process, that'll be available to the community, let it be a playground or some benches or anything along those lines. And then the creation of housing, affordable and workforce housing. And, this is for folks that, maybe have a home there in Templeton and it's a little bit too big and they want to move out into an apartment building that has accessibility in mind. I should have mentioned we'll restore the school, but we'll also add an elevator and make it handicap accessible. So it's a longer term solution for some of the residents that want to stay in Templeton. And, if, cash flow is a problem or a fixed income, this is an opportunity to have certainty around some of the units as it relates to their cost, their rent. So it's a great option for the community. Again, last slide on this, but open spaces, publicly accessible. We will have a community room within the redevelopment, and that could be available for meetings such as this committee or local neighborhood meetings where people want to sign out the community room and get their neighbors together. Let it be a birthday party or just a community event. So really something that would be and usable. And then, part of the tax credit program is long-term ownership. So I'm committed to this building for a minimum of 15 years. Actually, now they're making the affordable housing agreements in perpetuity. So I provide financial guarantees and, I'm part of the community once I'm there. So I'm looking to get engaged and stay engaged. So it's really exciting. So that's something that's a benefit to everybody. And I think, there's a long-term relationship that we're talking about here. This isn't just hey, we want to build this and we're going to walk away. We're committed to the community. And so at this point, we're going to walk through the plan. I'm going to have Janice kind of give people a sense of what we've created here. And, this is conceptual in nature, but, it works for the financing mechanisms that we'd like to employ here. And it's going to be a really beautiful redevelopment. So with that, Janice, why don't you take people through the site and the two buildings, and then we can open it up to questions.
Awesome. Thank you again. As Matt alluded to, this is a collaborative process. You know, whether it's public-private partnership, friendly 40B, it all speaks to coming up with a common vision that we can take forward. So as Matt said, these are just initial thoughts that we put on paper. It by no means this is where it will end up, but we want to engage you and as we say, cultivate community one neighbor at a time. So we really think the core of your community is in the existing 1923 school. It stands proudly there on School Street with its historic lawn that will be restored, and it will remain that proud presence in the neighborhood. We've illustrated a new drive to the left that will be an easy drop off and access point to a new accessible entry where our new elevator would be located, and have that open community presence to the common areas that would be right inside there. And we'll look at the plans a little bit deeper later. So there's 24 parking spaces to the left of the existing building, and then a connection via a landscaped walkway up to the new proposed building towards the rear. We're maintaining the access road to the right for the town, but we would primarily be using, Matt, you've got the cursor right now. That would be our entry point to the back access road that kind of divides the two and is access to the back parking. That courtyard between the two buildings, we envision that as a very active community gathering point. It's got a close connection to the entries at both buildings, but it could be play areas for the young kids or outdoor passive seating. Again, maintaining the open space to the front in that historic state. Let's go inside a bit then. These are diagrams of how we would break out the building. Again, to the lower left, that it's the ground floor of the existing building with the new entry, and the new elevator. But the purple areas are proposed as common areas. So whether that be the management office, the community room, front and center there for easy access by all. And then we would integrate new units into the existing classrooms. Working with our historic planners, it's usually one classroom, one unit, but that offers large windows, lots of natural daylight, high ceilings, and incredible millwork that gets detailed in your unit. The quarters will remain as is. Again, the historic preservationists look at that as the sacred nave of the school. So you'll be able to walk through the school and feel like you're running to your third grade class. Upstairs, the historic center entry is maintained. It's likely not to be a active used entry due to accessibility concerns, but would be prominently there for all. Again, mostly 2 bedrooms in the existing building, demoing the 1-story addition that's used for storage. Well, originally used as storage, but currently other classrooms, right, that would be demoed. If we look to the right, the floor plans for the new addition provide another, I had my unit counts here.
34.
34 units, again with a central entrance and stairs on either end to access adjacent parking or drop-off areas. Why don't we go to, this again was in your proposal, but summarizes kind of the counts and where they all lie, meeting that accessibility requirement. And here's again our first pass at envisioning our entry to the school or to the new apartments at Baldwin School with prominence on the existing historic school, and as is always promoted with the historic, that our new is secondary. So it's kind of sets in the background there as a supplemental structure to our existing.
Great, thanks, Janice. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and just now we're here for your questions. So whatever you'd like to discuss, we're happy to take those questions.
I have a couple quick ones.
Great.
Okay, I would like to know how many of your 50 units are going to be low income units?
So the tax credit program, of the 50 units, 46 of them will be eligible for the low income housing tax credit program.
And how many of your units are going to be ADA compliant?
All of them, I believe.
Okay, and accessible for wheelchair,
Yes.
any sort of disability?
Yep, we're going to install a new elevator in the Baldwin school, and then the building at the rear will be accessible, and we'll do what we need to do on site to get the grading to work to be accessible.
Perfect.
Matt, if I could just add to that, they would all be visitable, and 5% by code would be fully built out with accessible grab bars and the like, but all are visitable by, accessible standards.
Right. Well, my question was, if I was a disabled person and I wanted to live in your building and I had many friends, how many actual units are going to be handrailed, roll-in showers, ADA?
Yep, I misunderstood the question. So 5% is the requirement, but we would be willing to make reasonable accommodations for folks that needed them.
Okay.
Hey guys, Matt and Janice, great presentation. I love the historical aspect. I think that was A+. I am a neighbor and just kind of representing that aspect here. I have a couple questions. I don't know if they're directed right at you or partly the town, or just FYI for the committee to think about as we score you. But I'm just curious, when you said that there's the housing crisis, I understand towards Boston that may be very true, but do we truly have, is there data to support the fact that Templeton actually needs 50 additional apartment rental in town? So the data that can be provided and emailed out to the group. Is that Amanda? Did you say yes to that, or who just said yes?
That was me that said yeah.
Can you send that to the committee to kind of?
I don't have like an actual, as someone who used to work at the housing authority in town, I can tell you how huge my lists are for affordable housing.
Okay.
There is a need.
From the neighborhood perspective, looking at that, where we're primarily single family homes, and then putting 50 units with what could possibly be 100+ people living there at that time is kind of a huge impact on the neighborhood. So I think that's just one point to point out. 2 Cottage Street and School Street, the roads themselves are in deplorable condition, both the sidewalks, potholes, the whole entire thing is a mess. So I don't know if there's plans either from the town or Matt and Janice. I don't know if there's any workings there, because there's obviously going to be increased traffic. What does that look like?
So there is a housing crisis across the Commonwealth. There's a housing choice initiative where various communities that are interested in creating more housing stock, can apply and then get resources, state resources to help, planning and technical assistance, as well as, additional resources to create more housing. In my kind of first pass and analysis of Templeton, I did observe that, roughly 70% of the housing stock is, for sale housing, home ownership. So you have very little rental housing within the community. I think it's important to have a balanced housing stock across the community. And, rental housing is part of that larger conversation and part of the picture. We, with our third-party management company, feel that it's important to kind of make sure that, this community is part of the larger community. In the RFP and in your master plan, you talked about connecting to the larger fabric of the community, staying, historic in nature, but also, that means, what does this building look like in the back, and how does that relate to the other single family homes and multifamily homes within the community? So, we put the larger, we put the larger building behind the school to kind of shield it from the community to some degree. And we'd work with you to kind of make sure that it's the right fit. And, do all the things that, you as a community feel are important, but also we feel are important to allow the members that ultimately live at the Baldwinville school apartments, are comfortable, happy, safe, secure. So all of those things.
Okay, so just following up on that too, would the traffic pattern remain the same on Cottage and School Street with a one-way going down School?
So we really have to analyze that. I can't say that today. We'd employ our traffic engineer to do a bit of a study there. Parking and traffic will be lesser than they currently are, as it's a school use. A school use has a very high traffic volume, as you know, having lived in the neighborhood and having the school in operation, up until just last year. But traffic volumes are typically lower for housing, and we have to kind of figure out the best way to mitigate and manage any traffic on site. So affordable housing typically has a lower parking ratio than market rate housing per se. So some residents can't afford 2 cars. So we've certainly made a provision to have at least 1 car per unit. And in some cases, I think we're at 1.47 is the parking ratio. So that allows for visitors and those that want to have 2 vehicles. But we certainly have to take a closer look at that, Chris.
Okay, and then my last question, going back to the school, is just the idea that Templeton just built a brand new elementary school that opened up last year. One of our other neighboring towns, Phillipston, who's part of that, I believe is closing or could be closing. So the school, which is brand new, a year old, will be at or near max capacity for next school year. So my question is, has there been any thought or looking at to say, we don't know how many children could be living in these 50 units and what stressors that would cause to a brand new school?
So this question always comes up when creating housing in communities, and it's a good one. MAPC, Metropolitan Area Planning Council, put out some data recently where it talks about kind of that next student and how that factors into the redevelopment of something like this and adding units. And I don't know the statistic off the top of my head, but it's marginal at best. So the addition of these 50 units won't create, 50 new children in the school system. It's much less than that, and I can send around a link to that data. But it will not. I don't believe it will be an issue as it relates to that.
Well, we can't guarantee that, but that data would be helpful. That would be great. Thank you.
Happy to share it. Yes.
Hi, I'm Diane.
Hi, Diane. How are you?
Good. It's not really questions that I have, but I have a couple of concerns. So you're relying on our CPC funds, and it's over $1 million. And I had asked today how much money would be left if all those millions of dollars, over $1 million would be used. And I'm not sure if Adam, you had an opportunity to get that answer for me.
Yeah, Lori and I did some research. Lori, you have the number, the paperwork in front of you on that question. So Diane, if you could, I'm going to give it to Lori because she spoke with Kelly, our accountant, earlier today.
After speaking with Kelly, Diane, there are sufficient funds in there to support that.
Okay, but then it would require a town vote, and we could run down a road and the town could vote no. So I do have a concern about that. So that's one of my, and the other thing is when I was reading through the proposal, you would be asking for a reimbursement of costs because you would be looking for environmental issues within the building. And if you weren't happy with that, you would be asking for the town to reimburse you and also for mitigation of some of those funds. And I can tell you As a select woman on the board and having gone through, 7 years of budgets, this town doesn't have that kind of money. So I'm not sure where that would stand. So those are concerns that I have within the proposal.
Thanks, Diane. Those are valid concerns, and I really appreciate you bringing them up because they make the proposal viable or not, to be honest with you. I do understand that the CPC request is significant, but it does fill the mission and the needs of that group or that use of resources, creating open space, affordable housing, and saving a historic building. So I feel, and also when you're building these types of projects in these communities, a local contribution is helpful when you're making the larger request to the state for the resources. So that's part of the thinking there behind that. We could talk about the purchase price and how we might kind of manipulate that a little bit to lessen the request from the CPC. But I wanted to do something that was fair and equitable for everybody. So that was the thinking on that request. And so I understand it would, we'd have to figure out how best to propose that to the community. But I do think it would be a really great use of those resources, and saving the school, is important. And so as it relates to environmental, so this was a proposal, and essentially, we don't know anything. We haven't done any due diligence to date. And so is there hazmat in the old school building? Definitely. I can tell you that. And I don't have generally a problem with that. We encounter asbestos, various other things when renovating these buildings. And, I would hire my hazmat consultant to come in and do a survey of the building so we can quantify what those costs are. That's all part of the due diligence process. So, I would work with the community, the town administrator, Adam's office, to kind of structure a purchase and sale agreement that is mutually beneficial for the town and for MPZ, so we could mitigate those issues. I'd also do a phase 1, phase 2 site assessment, just to make sure that, there's nothing on site that's overly concerning. But we run into environmental conditions all the time when we do these redevelopments. We need to take a hard look at them and then assess. So I put that in the proposal just to let you know that it's something that we're thinking about, and it needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dennis, did you have a question? You're on mute right now.
Regarding the financing for this project, it sounded like the total cost was going to be something around $26 or $27 million, with $1,173,000 coming from the CPC funding. And you were expecting to get tax credits amounting to $6,200,000, and then the remaining of that financing is going to come from where?
So the financing, structure of financing on these types of transactions is multi-layered. So the financing would come from, yes, the CPC resources. Then the allocation of the low-income housing tax credit. There's a syndication process for those credits. So you sell them to an investor and they would give you equity, which I show in the proposal. And then there would be the historic tax credits. It's a similar type process. And those would be sold to an investor and they would put equity into the transaction. And then I'd be requesting affordable housing resources from the Department of Housing and Community Development. So you see those in the budget that was part of the proposal as well. I'm just pulling it up here. We can go through it in detail, but those resources equate to approximately $5 million. And then there's a bank loan that comes into play where I'm on the hook for that as well. It's a first mortgage, and that's supported by the rents that come in from the redevelopment. So the structure that I presented is a typical affordable housing transaction, but yes, you would need all those resources to come together to fund the $20 million project. We're projecting this to be about a $20 million project.
So the remaining approximately $19 million would come from the revenues of rentals and fees of that nature?
No, it's all resources allocated, vis-a-vis the Department of Housing and Community Development, or the credits that we accrue through the National Park Service, where we get the historic tax credit, which we used for the redevelopment of this building. And then, as I said, a bank loan, and the bank loan is $1,647,000, and that is what's supported by the rents for the building.
So there would be no additional expenses to the town other than what the CPC puts in?
Correct.
Okay. I noticed in your diagrams that the parking area on the left side of the building, I thought that was private property. Is that also included in the lot?
I believe Adam might speak to this one better, but I believe it was included as one of the parcels.
Dennis, if I could just have clarification though, the parcel to the left, are you talking about parcel 407, the higher one? Or are you talking about the one closer to the school parcel? I believe it's 383 or 385. On the left of the school?
So the left of the school, right.
Correct.
One that was going to accommodate 24 parking spots, I believe.
Yeah, we do own that parcel. There's just a right of way that goes through there, but they're already aware of that.
Yeah.
Just to kind of chime in on that though, the property they were of the diagram, which I assume is not to scale, it abuts that gentleman's barn right there. That whole lot is not town property. Part of it is.
Yeah, I mean the scale might be a little bit off, but I think the idea that you're talking about in between the parcel that's brought up and 407, Chris, is just for clarification, that's private property.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. The 16 parking spots that go down School Street, it was my understanding that that would belong to the housing authority.
When I talked to Luann, who is our town assessor, she actually said that is part of town property.
Then why is that's funny because never mind, just curious.
But to kind of go off of Amanda's question, that's a good point. That was my understanding as well, joining the Tucker building. What will that partnership be? Would it just be permanent use by the residents or partial use, or what would that look like for those 16 spaces?
So I'd look to structure a shared parking arrangement with the community, with the town. So ultimately the residents would be able to utilize those spaces in some form or fashion. I don't know if that's just in the evening, when they come home for the day, or, it could be used by others in the neighborhood. I honestly I propose that in the proposal as something we need to figure out, but we certainly, it sounds like parking is a concern, and I want to make sure there's adequate parking for the redevelopment. So that's why we included those spaces.
And just one more question about, in the proposal, you said this setup that the site plan on page 37 does not include any adjacent private property that you may look to acquire. So obviously there's two homes that are tucked in very close to these properties. Is that your ultimate goal, would be to buy these properties, demolish them, and have that land become part of this big picture?
So I put it out there as something to consider. I have not had any conversations with any property owners as we sit here today. I would be open to having those conversations if they were interested, but that's not currently contemplated in the plan. But I did want to make reference to it, as 12 School Street is tucked in the site there. They have an access easement. quite frankly, right now, it's just a dirt driveway. So any improvement there would be a good one, I would think. But I certainly would want to have those conversations, and that's how we would approach that.
No, that makes sense. But the building, the proposal as it is could still happen with those two structures there. Is that correct?
The plan that we presented is a viable proposal as it relates to what's being offered currently by the town.
Great.
You're welcome.
Matt, I have a question with regard to parcel 407. Does the plan include the 15-foot right of way that the town was contemplating keeping?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be vis-a-vis an access drive.
Access.
But yeah, that would certainly be, that was our intent when we drew this plan, to make sure that that easement was accommodated, as well as the easement for 12 School Street, the access easement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just really, if you look at your site plan, Matt, if I could ask the question, does it include the 407? If you look at this map that we have that will be going
Yes.
on the towards the town meeting for a vote, will your proposal include this piece right here too? Because I don't see that in your.
So we show it as an access point in the plan, but I'm just looking for it as an access point. If it needed to be improved, to Chris's points earlier, we can see if we can figure out a way for the redevelopment to help that process.
The reason why I ask is this map is the one that's actually going to the annual town meeting for a vote, and I see yours right here. It stops right here, and then you include all this, but this is left off. So I'm just for clarification purposes wondering if your proposal will include that.
So I would say we don't need that drive, since we have several other access points. But we'd like to maintain it as a drive. I don't know if that's the hope or what the town is planning to do. It's currently a drive, as I recall.
So just an access point. Okay, just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt, Robert May here, Advisory Committee, Templeton. I have a question just relating to a portion of your presentation here where you talk about the CPA money. It says 1.173 million from the town CPA. And then it goes on, and later down in that paragraph, it says if the development's cash flow after expenses and first mortgage debt exceed the to be determined threshold, a portion of cash flow exceeding that threshold could be used to repay the town's financial commitments. I know there's a lot of maybes and could be's in there, but the financial commitments you're talking about, is that the 1.173 million from CPA?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you. And very good presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your question.
Sure.
Anybody else have any questions of this?
I have a question about the size of the new building that's going to be built. What do you expect that the height will be of that building?
Sorry, unmuting me. It is a 3-story building. We're illustrating a flat roof, so it would not be probably in the range of 32 to 35 feet.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep, we try to match the height of the existing school building. We wouldn't be taller than that. That would be the goal.
Dennis, you all set?
All set.
Thank you. Anybody else on the screening committee have any more questions for Matt and his team?
Just a follow-up question, if I might, Adam.
Yeah.
For Matt. And I think it was asked partially, or I missed the answer previous. On that new building in the back, that building will be, I assume, would be constructed to look very compatible with the present day school. Would be my understanding. There would be some requirements related to that.
So thanks for the question, Robert. It's a good one. Typically, the Park Service and MHC, Mass Historic Commission, like the new buildings to be different than the historic buildings, sometimes to be more contemporary in nature. That said, we would still look at the context of the existing neighborhood and do something that makes sense from that standpoint. So it wouldn't be a brick building, so to speak, but it would be contextual to the neighborhood and appropriately, scaled. And, I might have Doug speak a little bit to his experience with this. Doug, are you on the line?
I am, Matt.
Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, everyone. This is Doug Kelleher with Absalon, and I apologize for joining the meeting a little bit late. But yeah, as Matt says, with historic tax credit projects, both the Mass Historical Commission, who administers the state historic tax credit program, and sort of has an advisory role in the federal historic tax credit program, and the National Park Service, who administers the federal tax credit program, they typically want to see the new construction to be differentiated from the historic building, but yet at the same time complementary to the historic building. And as I think Janice had mentioned earlier during the presentation, that the design of the new construction is the intent should be that it be more of a background building and sort of not detract from the attention of the historic building, but rather sort of complement it, but just sort of be secondary in design and appearance to the historic building.
Okay, thank you very much, Doug.
And in my proposal, I just want to state, this is going to be a process, right? And so I plan for at least 3 community meetings, while we're going through the permitting process, so people could give us feedback, and we could take that feedback, and Janice and I would work together with the rest of the team and come back and present, some other options for the community. So we really want to make sure that, ultimately what's proposed here is something everybody is on board with.
Matt, if I could just ask one question, not to sound argumentative, but earlier you said that school traffic is typically busier than residential traffic. And I'm just I kind of don't understand that, because in the morning you have drop off and in the afternoon you have pickup, but evenings and weekends, there is literally no traffic when that was used as a school. So could you just help me understand what you mean by that?
Sure. So the volume of traffic is much greater from a school use, right? So you have multiple buses coming and going, and a lot of people moving in and out of the property, in the morning, and then when school lets out in the afternoon. In a residential situation, you typically have the people that live there, they go to work in the morning and they come home at night. And on the weekends, they may just stay in their apartment, utilize, neighborhood amenities, utilize amenities there in the building. But there's not a whole lot of additional traffic. And, we have traffic studies to kind of support that. So that's what I meant by kind of a reduction in traffic. But certainly, there will be car traffic, and we're planning for ample parking there. So I'm not going to say that it's not going to impact the neighborhood. There certainly will be some impact, but I think it's appropriate for the use, the housing use.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may, excuse me, have you done any engineering studies or whatever to estimate what the impact will be on town services, such as the water, sewerage, electric, and possible runoff, water runoff?
So I did include a little bit of analysis in the proposal, just very high level, as to water and sewer flows, volumes. That would certainly have to be addressed with the civil engineer. Standards for on-site water retention have increased significantly, per the Commonwealth. So this would be in full kind of compliance with those standards. A registered engineer would certify to that. And I believe we also need to go to the Conservation Commission. So they would have that information given the distance from the river there behind the site. So all of those things would be calculated and submitted through the permitting process.
We have any more questions for Matt? From the screen?
At the moment, no. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Chris, Diane, Bob, Amanda?
All set, all good.
I'm good too.
All set.
Okay, Matt, well, unless you have some closing remarks to make, thank you for presenting to the screening committee. I'm not sure if you or your team wanted to.
I'll just, one closing remark I'd make is, Adam, thank you for all your help through this process. Lori, you have also provided a lot of information. I really appreciate that. And members of the committee, I want to thank you guys. You're taking your personal time to vet this proposal. We put a lot of thought into it. I visited your community. It's a great community. It's got this warmth to it, and I really appreciated that, kind of walking around the neighborhood and going over to the pizza shop and getting a bite to eat, and just kind of starting to realize what type of place it was. And that's what we do when we come into these communities. We want to be a part of them. So I really appreciate this opportunity to present a plan, and I hope that we can become a part of your community. So thank you again for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we'll sign off. Have a great day.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. And just a point of clarification, I helped him just as much as I helped the other proposer, just for informational purposes.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to make it.
No, it's okay. I'm doing the procurement, so whatever, I make sure it's fair to both proposers.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, everybody have their RFP scoring sheets out. Oh, is it everybody? Let me just check if it's just a screening committee. Sean, are we good with just the screening committee?
Who's the 6-1 number?
Sorry, Diane.
There's a 617, 787. Oh, they're gone.
Okay, so everybody else is gone. Okay, great. Thanks, Diane. Okay, so if everybody has their sheets, if they have questions, I know Lori and I wanted to share some information with you today. We had a teleconference with Mr. Terenzini, the town administrator, the three of us, and we went over some things. We wanted to share that information with the screening committee as you're putting together your evaluations of both proposers. Lori.
Okay, so with the first presenter, Eden Ari of Mass, when we talked today, they had not provided all the requested financial documentation at this point in time. It appeared that they may have the financial stability to complete the project based on what was reviewed. And something that I missed on item B on the first presenter, we're not going to, it has to stand alone. It doesn't depend on a retail site being negotiated. We're not doing negotiating here. This is just the review committee. Let's see. Income from the first presenter is capital, and it ends after 5 years. It's based on 5 years.
Lori,
Yes,
did you say he may have the income or may not have the income?
May.
May, not certain.
Which is really the same thing, Diane. May or may not.
It was, some information was provided, and the information that was provided was good, but previous years were not provided. So it wasn't full documentation that was requested. Probable permit income for the first project is approximately $7,500, give or take, based on what they're looking to do. And that's all I have for the first one.
Laurie, can I just ask for the first one? They mentioned too about possibly negotiating a second site that would be for retail, like that's totally separate and obviously would not be located in this building. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Also, when they're mentioning 75 to 100 people being employed, they're including their other adventures such as delivery and retail.
Any other questions of the Edenry? Okay.
Okay, so with MPZ, provided all the requested financial documentation for review, strong financial position. Permit fees would be somewhere in the area of, he's estimating $159,000, give or take, based on what they want to do. Use of the CPA funds appears to be doable after consulting with the town accountant. And again, Diane, it really depends on town meeting. It would be continued income to the town based on the increased value of the property. So it would be taxes, water, sewer, the whole 9 yards because of the size of the project. And that's what I have for you.
We just wanted to share this information with all of you. That way, when you're putting together your ratings for each proposer, we have that ready. And when everybody has that completed, if they could let me know, and then I have my tabulator here so I can start inserting the information as I call upon each one of you to give your total score. So you're going to want to check off whether it's not advantageous, advantageous, or highly advantageous, and go through all of them. I believe there's 9 questions. So you get a score for the highest is 27 or the lowest 9. And with that,
Do you want my score?
are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, Mr. May, what's Eden Ree of MA LLC?
17.
MPC?
22.
22.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that has their
I'm
completed?
ready, Adam.
Who's that? On the line?
It's Amanda.
Amanda. Okay,
Hold
what do you
on.
have?
I just lost it. Hold on a second.
Okay. But keep in mind, I'm gonna need all your sheets, so.
Correct. So for Eden, I have 20. And for MPZ, I have 23.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Adam, I'm good when you are.
Okay.
Eden would be 21 and MPZ 18.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And the last, well, I got Diane or Dennis. wants to go first?
Dennis is muted.
Oh,
Dennis, you all set to give?
not yet. I just need a little more time to go through this.
Take your time, Dennis.
Take your time. Diane, you have yours.
Hold on.
Hey, Adam,
Who's
it's
that?
Amanda.
Oh, Amanda, yes.
Can I email mine to you?
Yeah, as long as you, well, I would prefer the original.
Okay,
For the
no problem.
procurement file, please.
No problem.
Thank you. Just call me and let me know. I'm at town hall.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Adam, while we're waiting, could you possibly give next steps as to what this will look like going forward, or?
What I can say is this, after this, you're done making the committee's recommendation would be whoever gets the total higher RFP score with all 5 of you combined. Whoever gets the total score the highest, then that recommendation would go to the town administrator.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello?
Hi, Dennis.
Ah, okay. I have 20 for both of them.
Okay, hold on 1 second, Dennis.
Okay.
Excuse me for a sec. Can you guys hear me? I apologize, but I wanted to mention one thing. I just noticed that we were listening to what you were saying. Our proposal is 3% is ongoing.
Ah, okay. I have 20 for both of them.
Okay, Dennis, you have 20 for both of them.
Okay.
Okay, so Doug just shared some information with us.
I apologize, but I wanted to mention.
Oh, it's okay.
I just noticed that we were listening to what you were saying. Our proposal is 3% is ongoing. It continues after the 5 years. It doesn't stop. You mentioned at the very end when you made the.
So did everybody hear Doug?
Okay, so Doug just shared some information with us.
I apologize, but I wanted to mention.
Oh, it's okay.
I just noticed that we were
Doug, can I just ask why that changed? Because in the document, it does say, you're saying in perpetuity, I'm understanding, but it says 5 years in the.
It continues after the 5 years. Sorry, my screen keeps on. Hold on 1 second. Let me shut this on. All right, there we go. I apologize. My screen was replaying on YouTube because I had it on as well as talking to you. We only did a 5-year projection because that's what we were asked to do, a 5-year projection. But on terms of the host agreement, our 3% was ongoing subsequent to the 5 years, did not end after 5 years. It's continuing to perpetuity.
Okay,
I
thank you.
apologize for that error, Doug.
And that made a huge difference because ours is not coming to an end after 5 years.
Right.
I only showed 5 years out because we were only asked to provide the 5-year documentation. But I thought we were clear, and the attorney and I were going back and forth. Our 3% doesn't end after that. That's why we tried to cap the property taxes. Our 3% doesn't end, a 3% revenue generation.
According to like Chris brought up, it just says Eden estimates that 3% of the annual gross revenue over a 5-year period. Okay, well, thanks for the clarification.
I thought that was important, so I wanted to mention. I apologize for interrupting, but it was a
Oh,
key.
no, that's okay.
Not at all.
We'll just have to go back to our
Revisit.
I'm
revisit.
sorry about that. I apologize. I'll let you go.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, well, Diane, did you get? Now, if you,
I have first
Diane, you there?
for,
Okay.
hear me?
Kind of coming in a
Can you
little,
hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
For Ian, 24, for MPZ, 23.
So you have 24 for Eden and 23 for
Yep.
MPZ?
Yep,
Okay, so Eden,
and
Reed,
I'll get you my sheets because I changed them. Because I had
Okay.
given you sheets, but
so you have 24 for Eden and 23 for MPZ. I just want clarification. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go around to everybody else with that other additional information to make sure. Okay, Robert May, I have you in. You staying with your Eden Re 17, MPC development 22?
Yeah, because yes.
Okay. Dennis, I have you in for 20 for each proposer.
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, I have you in for 21 for Eden Re and 18 for MPC development.
So Eden will be 23 now, so up to 23, and MP will stay at 18.
Okay. So 23 for Eden and 18 for MPC development.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And the last one, Amanda.
I'm staying the same.
So 20 for Eden Re, MPC development 23.
Correct.
Okay. Score is in, and for Eden Re is 104, MPC development is 106. So that recommendation will be moved forward now to the town administrator. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation on the screening committee. This is an important decision for the town of Templeton and the neighborhood. So with that, thank you all for your service, and thank everybody else for tuning in and watching on TCTV. Have a good one, all, everybody.
Thank you all. Good night.
thank you all.